Although I was not able to go to the Berlin Grünheide factory party that Tesla threw last weekend, I have the good fortune that one of my Patreon patrons, Claudia, did, and she took a ton of pictures and videos and spoke to Tesla engineers there. What she discovered is pretty amazing, and in this video I want to pass on some of the most impressive revelations from the factory tour. Let's take a look. For those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So first of all, I want to say that I know you normally see my beautiful mug through the videos, and for the most part at least, but this time around I'm going to show an awful lot of pictures that Claudia took and videos as well. Most of the photos and videos, of course, will be related to the topics I'm talking about, but I wanted to give credit where credit is due, and Claudia took all the photos and the videos, so thank you very much to her. I hope all of you appreciate that too. So for anybody who didn't know, Giga Berlin or Giga Grünheide or Giga Brandenburg, and by the way, the introduction to my videos is always the Brandenburg Concerto. It's my son Zenly Music who did the sampling of the Brandenburg Concerto number 3 and turned it into kind of like a little bit of a techie sort of thing. Anyway, silly, but by the way, I have been wanting to redo my intro for ages. I have been so busy that I haven't been able to. I actually have what I think is a pretty good idea, but I literally do not have the time. And by the way, I've done a video on this about how, you know, not having enough time, people, or money is always a factor. Well, right now I don't have enough time, so I'm willing to throw money at people who might be able to do it. So if anybody happens to be a good graphic designer, shoot me an email and let me know and send me like a reel or something like that, because I can throw some money at you. I have a pretty good idea what I want to do, and then once I get like a 5 to 10 second intro thing done, I'll have Zenly Music, my son, do another little bit of music for it, which will be different than this current version. But anyway, I know it's really overdue for a refresh, but I've just been so busy. But anyway, hopefully somebody will take me up on this, and hey, you make a little bit of money in the meantime. So anyway, enough of that tangent. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Anyway, Tesla is creating a factory, of course, near Berlin, which is actually in Grünheide or Brandenburg, depending on how you want to count it. Essentially, it's kind of a suburb of Berlin. How about that? But anyway, they threw kind of a big party. They had a Ferris wheel. They had all sorts of fun things. It looked like a really fun day to be able to go. Of course, being in the United States, I couldn't make the trip out there, and I didn't have a ticket anyway. But more to the point, Tesla basically threw the doors open and allowed the public, I think it was 9,000 people who were ticket holders, just to come in, walk around, and look at it all. It was pretty darn amazing. So anyway, I'm going to start with the pictures now. I'll be rolling pictures and videos and things like that as we go, but I'm going to talk about 4 or 5 major points that I saw, and then at the end of the video I'm going to do some speculation here. So anyway, that's why I wore the shirt again. I know I wore it for the last episode, but I thought I'd wear it twice in a row since I'm doing a couple of episodes with a bit of speculation in them. So first of all, as you can see from these pictures, the factory is huge and it's very clean. And it also has a ton of robots, but in many ways the number of robots is actually down from what I think people might expect, and that's thanks a lot to the Giga Presses, which we'll get to later on in this episode. As the engineers told Claudia, and as Elon Musk actually confirmed, Giga Berlin at full ramp up is planning to be able to create one body every 45 seconds. Now that's not a complete car, but that's like a body. That's the structural framework of it every 45 seconds, which is pretty remarkable. And if you do the math, that's about 80 bodies per hour and 1,920 bodies per day at full uptime. And Elon tweeted out that with about 75% uptime, he says that this translates into around 10,000 bodies per week or more than 500,000 bodies per year, which is pretty remarkable. So again, it's going to take time to get to that 500,000 mark, but that's pretty amazing. And they actually had a sign. It was kind of beautiful. They had signage up all over the place. And Claudia took some pictures of that. And it was in German and English, which made it much easier for me to read. I would have had to struggle with the German. But anyway, one of the signs specified that they're going to be able to eventually build as many cars as are sold in Germany every year, which is an amazing feat. Also, interestingly enough, given the lack of information about the 4680 battery cells and the structural battery packs, it sure seems like Giga Berlin is going all in for the structural battery pack, at least from what they showed the public. So just as a quick refresher, what is a structural battery pack? Well, a traditional battery pack, of course, has the little cells, the 2170s or something like that in them, and they're then put into modules, which are smaller components like, I don't know, you could think about the cells and then they go into like a cooler or something like that. I mean, they're bigger than that, but basically it's a metallic sort of cooler or block that it goes into. And then those are placed into a frame that has its own I-beams and its own structural elements and things like that. And it's very, very heavy. A structural battery pack essentially goes from the cells, which are going to be 4680 cells in the structural battery pack, which are in their own right amazing. And I've done videos on that and you can check that out, of course. But those batteries go directly into a tray that's the size of the full undercarriage of the car. And then that gets filled with some sort of foam type material, which is incredibly structurally rigid. And that makes the entire car only 3 pieces. And we're going to talk about the Giga Press later on in this video. But the structural battery pack is the middle, and there's 2 pieces on the outsides, the front and the back. And that means that the entire car's undercarriage is only 3 pieces. So why does this matter? Number one, you've got simplicity, of course. But number two, it's very, very much lighter, and it's safer because the batteries actually sit slightly more interior to the car, and that makes them, less susceptible to being punctured on side impacts, which is really, really huge. Also, something that I think was completely new with this tour was evidence that the seats are going to be mounted directly onto the battery pack itself. And by the way, the seats are made by Tesla themselves. Talking about vertical integration, they don't have another company that makes the seats and then they just purchase the seats from them. Tesla makes the seats from the ground up. But anyway, you can essentially see from this image that on top of the structural battery pack, they've got a metal plate, and onto that they're bolting a metal armature that also looks like it's die cast, and onto that the seats go directly. So there's no intermediate area, which means that the seats are going to be incredibly rigidly held to the car. And by the way, something that Claudia actually told me, an engineer told her, was that the battery pack can actually be replaced. Like right now, from the looks of it, it looks like the battery pack is, permanently there. And if anything ever happened to the battery pack, that would be it. There'd be no way to replace it and the car is toast. But she said that the engineer told her that you can actually disconnect the entire thing. Obviously it would take time, but you can disconnect it, you can pop out the battery pack, and you can put a new one in. So if necessary, they could actually replace the entire battery pack on the car. So that's actually kind of cool, because one might think that one of the downsides of having a vehicle like this that's so simple and so simply constructed is that it's a one-off, and if anything goes wrong with it, it's dead. But apparently that is not the case, which is really, really cool. So anyway, the structural battery pack has a huge safety improvement. Of course, having the seats rigidly mounted to the battery pack is also going to be a big improvement. That means that the seats, in the case of a really bad accident, could not detach from the car. They're, essentially stuck onto the structure of the car. So they're going with the car. So that's a huge benefit also. And of course, the 4680 battery cells have higher energy density as well. So the range of this car could be substantially more than the Model Y that's sitting in my garage right now. So the Model Y that I have has an EPA rating of 326 miles, and more realistically, let's say 270-ish to 280. I expect the one from Berlin is going to at least have 400 EPA rating. I think it's going to be that much better. It's just an improved body. They've got fewer parts. It's a lighter thing. It's got a different battery pack. It's got different batteries. So I expect it'll have an EPA range of about 400 miles as opposed to the 326 currently. And of course, speaking of front and back castings, they have a couple of gigantic Giga presses. And by the way, you can check out that video if you're interested. That actually is the most popular video I've ever done on this channel, which is pretty cool. So I'm not going to repeat that video because I'm sure a lot of you have seen it already, but essentially it's a giant die casting machine. So you can think about like a Hot Wheels car or something like that, except, instead of a car like this big and you're making pieces like that, you're making the whole back end and front end of a car. The current version of the Model 3 has the back end done in one piece, but the Giga Berlin one is going to have the front and the back, which means again that the entire undercarriage is battery tray, a back piece and front piece, and that's it. So the whole thing is just 3 pieces, which is amazing. It looks kind of like a toy, right? When you look at it in these pictures, it looks like a toy, but it's a toy that's the size of a car. So it should be amazingly structurally rigid, because when you look at these die cast, of course, it's not smoothly die cast. There's all sorts of braces and crossings and things like that that are built into this. They've done a lot of work to create pieces that are super, super rigid and can take the load of the car and can take the towing and all of the other things that you do with an SUV. What was kind of cool from some of the videos was there was evidence that the Giga presses were working and a lot of the stamping machines and other things were working and the robots were working. Nothing is in them really yet because they're not approved to produce parts, but you can see the robot arms moving around and you can see the presses going up and down and pressing and all of that kind of stuff. So that's all really cool to see that it's actually operational. And the engineers said that within 2 hours of getting approval, they could actually ramp up and start to produce cars. And in line with that, Tesla's actually gotten permission to produce 250, I'm not sure if it's 250 bodies or 250 complete cars to test out the line and test out the facilities. So that's really good news that they've at least gotten that, right? Because the German government is very, very slow in terms of giving permissions. And I'm going to do another episode, probably the next one is going to be on water and Giga Berlin. And that's a huge topic and it's actually something really, really important. So definitely, subscribe and hit the bell notification icon if you want to see that video. And of course, after the Giga presses and all of that kind of stuff, we have to look at the paint shop next. That was huge. According to the Tesla engineers that spoke with Claudia, they can paint a car in 5 hours, which may not sound like it's that fast, but you have to remember this is electrocoating, this is cleaning, this is multiple coats of paint, and they all have to dry, right? You have to do a coat of paint, you have to wait for it to dry, have to do another coat, you have to wait for it to dry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a huge amount of stuff that goes on, and to be able to do it in only 5 hours is pretty remarkable. And she said the engineers told her they're going to kind of branch the production line so that the cars are being spit out, but not going through only one paint shop, so they're all, queued up for 5 hours, but they're basically going to split it, and I guess there's going to be multiple paint shops that will be able to do multiple cars at once. And you can see from this photo, it's a really cool photo that they did that show the stages of it from the sort of bare aluminum that they start with all the way up through the electrocoating and the cleaning and up to the multiple coats of paint and then to the absolutely gorgeous, paint look at the end. And the really cool and very, very new thing about Giga Berlin is that the coatings are not only deep and rich, but they can do not, just amazing looking coatings, but amazingly diverse coatings with all kinds of paints and different kinds of things that they can add to the car at once. So it's not just going to have to be like one color, but they can do colors that change based on the curvature of the part of the material that they're on, so that the sides can have more of a purplish color and the basic body can be more bluish or something. Or they can even have just multiple colors like crazy on the car in geometric forms and even, make some images and things like that. So this is an amazingly versatile brand new paint shop. This is a pretty radically different from anything that I think car manufacturers have had up to this time. And what's really, really cool, and again, I'm going to talk about this in the water episode, is that it's a mostly dry process. It doesn't require nearly as much water as most paint shops do. And that's a really, really huge thing. And finally, I want to touch on the precision LED headlights that Tesla has manufactured, I guess that are going to come out with the Model Y in Giga Berlin. But basically, these headlights are able to do amazing things. The Tesla that's being shown on the wall in this video is actually being projected by the headlights, not a projector, which is pretty amazing. So the headlights are able to move around and adjust. And, if they see a cyclist or something like that, so yay for me as a cyclist, the headlights will actually, kind of move away from the head of the person so that they're not, going straight into your eyes. So all of that's going to be incredible. I would assume it's all sort of AI controlled. It has vision recognition and it's able to adjust the lights based on what it sees. But I think every other driver on the road should thank Tesla because that's going to make their lives easier. And then there are a couple more things that Claudia told me about, but I can't mention them yet, sorry. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but it does have to do with even more vertical integration than we know about in the Giga Berlin factory. So there are secrets upon secrets upon secrets, and it was incredible that Tesla opened their doors and allowed people to look inside and see all this stuff, but there's still more things that we don't know about. That's just as cool as what we actually did see. So pretty amazing stuff. And as a little cap off, just to remember that factories don't have to be grim, 1880s hell kinds of things, right? They can be beautiful spaces. The graffiti art that they have on the walls and that Elon said is going to be on all of the stairwells and I think on a lot of the stuff outside, not just one or two. That what they've showed so far is this really cool pseudo LiDAR type of scenes, which are actually rather beautiful. So I think what it is the vision system, the little dots that the Tesla vision system out of their cars is pulling in, and then it's sort of artified and made into these beautiful scenes. I actually suggested on Twitter that Tesla should actually sell these. They could make a little bit of money, but also they're just gorgeous. They should just sell them. I would put that up on my wall and put it right back here someplace for my videos. I think that would be amazing, and I think that Tesla should do it, or maybe if they don't want to do it, somebody else could do that. But because I think that they're actually very beautiful. But anyway, so I think it's cool that they're thinking about the environment. They're trying to make a beautiful space. They're trying to make something with art in it and not just kind of a super only functional type of factory. So very impressive, Tesla. I just can't wait to see this thing in operation, and I hope the German government gives you all permission very, very soon. I'm hearing something around the beginning of December. Hopefully they'll be able to start producing cars and selling them to customers, which would be great. And then of course the next thing would be, I can't wait, and I really hope that Texas has its own big opening festival soon, because I really want to go to that. But enough about the present. What about the future? It's speculation time. Get it? So the question I have for the day, and I asked my Discord, channel, my Patreon members on Discord, I said, where is the next Tesla factory going to go? So here are some possible ideas, and honestly, I don't have a good answer to this, so I'm just going to tell you that up front. I have a feeling, honestly, that Tesla may be in the same position I am. They may be like, where should the next factory go? But anyway, some ideas that we have that came out of this. Number one would be the eastern United States, like Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, or where I am in Georgia. Because of course the United States is huge, so you've got the West Coast represented by California, you've got the middle of the country represented by Texas, and it would make sense to put one on the eastern, area of the country. And I don't think that Tesla is going to go into a union state in the northern part of the country, so I think they're going to stay in the south, which is why I kind of thought that sort of area there. Maybe in Florida, but I don't think so. Anyway, another really good option is London. I think that they also very well might put another factory in China, although Tesla's relationship with China is kind of funky right now, so that might put a little bit of a brakes on it. Plus, they haven't built out the third stage of the Giga Shanghai yet either. Tesla could also put another factory in Eastern Europe. This is kind of my idea. Something like Croatia, the Czech Republic, or something like that might be a really good place to put that, because that would also allow them to sell cars into the Asian market, near Asian market, like Russia, the Ukraine, etc., that sort of area, as well as Europe, of course. And then some more off-the-wall ideas. One might be like Rio de Janeiro in South America and Brazil. And another one, which I didn't even think of, but one of my viewers thought was a rather interesting idea, was the possibility of putting one in Turkey. And that's also interesting because that really does straddle Europe and Asia. I mean, literally, it sits on the border of the two continents. So that would be a really interesting place. I don't know if their supply chain logistics are good enough to be able to handle that, but that's a really interesting place to put that. And of course, Brazil would be a really interesting place to access the South American market. But anyway, enough of what I think are the runners up here. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction. I think that Tesla's going to put a battery factory in Australia. And I think that that's primarily because of their minerals. They have so many components of batteries that it would make sense to put one in Australia. Another option would be the Pacific Island chains above Australia. That might also be a good place to put a battery factory. And then I think they're either going to put a car or a battery factory near Bangalore, India. I don't know that would be in it necessarily, but I think it would be really interesting to put it right there. And again, that accesses a whole bunch of markets. The labor costs are relatively low. That would allow them to ship to to China as well as everything else, but also of course the Far East in general, to Australia, and also to the African continent much more easily. And the African continent is completely untapped at this point. So I think that would be a really, really good place to put it. The sort of runner-up in my mind is somewhere around Mexico City, to put one in that area instead of the eastern part of the United States, to put one in Mexico City, near Mexico City, right? Someplace in Mexico. I think that would also allow them to access the South American continent, but also the North American continent. So that might be an interesting thing. I think that's a little bit of a runner-up, but anyway, those are sort of my thoughts on that. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm curious about the fact that Tesla has not announced another factory yet. One would think that they would have at this point, but I think they also might be taking stock and just kind of saying, like, where geographically do we want to be, and who's going to have the supply chain capabilities to help us get to the next level that we want to do. Because I think the next level, the obviously next thing that they want to do, is produce the $25,000 Model 2 car, and maybe multiple versions of that. So all of that in my mind means that they want to go to a place where labor costs are not super, super high, so that they can build something that's inexpensive to export to the entire globe. So anyway, those are my thoughts and the thoughts of some of the folks on Discord that have talked to me about this stuff. I'd be very curious to find out what your thoughts are and what your rationale is for where you think the next Gigafactory is going to be. And you can do battery versus cars as separate factories, because I'd be curious about both of those. All right, that was a big episode, I know. I hope you found it fun and intriguing, and thank you to Claudia again. Of course, if you did enjoy it, definitely like it so other people can find this video, and do consider subscribing for more of this. Again, the water episode is probably coming up next. As always, always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much. It's been a while since I've done a new Patreon shout out, so I'm going to do that today. We have Steve Nadell, YouTube Patreon, Gort, Elaine Moore, Joe Fannin, A Big Triangle, Stuart Robertson, Paul Hill, and Joaquin Urbina. Welcome to all of you, and of course, if you want to join, definitely check out the link in the description. And if you're interested in some awesome merch, check out the link in the description. We've got the Tesla Bot t-shirt, which is super popular these days. Don't mess with Tesla. Lots of other t-shirts, tumblers, mugs, etc. So check out the link in the description and help the channel out. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. And as always, feel free to ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is DrKnowItAllKnows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.